had 8 DASA, if you're familiar with the DASA process, DASA investigations on things that their students or staff or parents were concerned about. So we took things through a formal process.
I was just going to ask.
I'm sorry. Kelly would like. Oh,
I didn't interrupt. Sorry.
no, that's okay. But at the end of the day, only one of those incidents that were investigated and in most cases still resulted in some local discipline or warning, parent involvement actually ended up being reportable to the state. So, there are still things that we're certainly looking into, but the good news is there was just one that was reportable this year, which was refreshing.
Mr. Rizzo, do you have anything that you want to add on your DSO?
Do not.
Very good. Any questions or anything? Okay. The next item I want to talk about, and I mentioned this last meeting, and I don't want to go to the mix of any other on the agenda, but I think you've probably seen a rash of media articles about schools all over the place doing all sorts of phone bans, non-under pockets, and everything. And my presentation today is not about that, because I think banning it is kind of just the end result, and I'm not sure about all the conversation that's run into it. So I just want to talk about what it is for us and some of the things that we're seeing. And as part of a bigger picture, Mrs. Honorado and I are going to be doing some parent university things related around use of social media and use of technology and how it's actually changing kids. Meaning, the group of kids that are coming into kindergarten that have a tablet in front of them for the last couple of years are different, and their brains are wired differently than maybe your kids. Certainly might, it's just a little different. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a different thing, and it's something that I want the community to be aware of. And I certainly would hope that some of the big takeaway is that we're really informed and that we educate people so that they have that understanding. Because every single one of us have one of these devices, and our relationship with those devices are very different. For children whose brains aren't fully developed, those are game changers. So I just want to take you through a little bit of this. So I wanted to start with our district mission because I think it's really key that every time we talk about big level policies, you have to ask yourself is what we're trying to achieve related to our policy. And I think it's really interesting because this is quite an old mission, but it still speaks to forward thinking and being an active and engaged citizen. And likewise, if you look at the district vision, it actually hasn't been updated in a while. It talks about communication, responsibility, prepared for success in society, technology, and I'm sure when this was written, it was a very different technology at the time. But now it's in our hands. So what are our rules? And I'm not going to bore you with this. For the secondary school, this is a much different issue than at the elementary school. At the elementary school, which is over here, it would be few and far between that a child would have it out under any circumstance, right? And most times when the kids have them, they're not using them appropriately, or taking a picture of somebody, or it's something that they don't even know about. So this is primarily a secondary issue. And our handbook spells it out for both middle school and high school. For example, middle school students cannot have their cell phones out. 8th grade allows them at lockers. High school students carry cell phones to have them in the hallways, and handbooks below about using them. And then certainly different teachers have in-class rules. Some have them where they use them, and it's a very active part of class. Some classes, they don't want to see them. And our expectation would be that the student would comply with the teacher's expectations. The question for a lot of districts, and I think our district should be too, is the time in the hallway, the unstructured time, is it appropriate for the kids to have the phone then? And I don't have the answer for that, but you will see when the kids go in the hallway, the first thing they do is they get that. The 3 minutes, 4 minutes between classes, it's there. And a question that has been posed to me is, in the cafeteria, for example, do we want our kids on their phone, or do we want them talking to other people, learning how to negotiate, navigate those things? But I share that because somebody called me just the other day, and they're like, why are you getting phones? What are you talking about? I said, I never once said that. But their expectations to talk about this, your end goal is that, and that is not our end goal. Okay, so why? Post-pandemic, kids' relationship with technology is very, very different. We've talked about numbers in sports being down, and one of the reasons, and maybe it's a small one, but one of the reasons is some kids just prefer to be home on technology rather than finding their hobbies to athletic endeavors, right? Classrooms where the phone where the device, the computer, whatever, is not a distraction from the actual instruction, right? Social media, no matter what kind of things we put in place, ban and they figure out a way, right? They're smarter than we are. We want to hack into our system, we would ask the kids. They would tell us how to do it. But if they're paying attention to what's going on the social media, they're clearly not engaged and spending enough attention on the instruction. And then certainly, and this is a big one for me, some of the kids, particularly younger ones, they don't know how to interact with people anymore. They're not coming in with the skills to share. They don't know how to negotiate. You hurt my feelings. They don't know how to do those things. And it's very, Kelly and I have had a lot of conversations. It's alarming at the primary level. It's really alarming. Okay, so what are some of the research sites? Nothing new for anybody here, right? Distractions, anxiety, mental health considerations, depression, cyberbullying, distractions, poor academic performance. Why poor academic performance? Well, because they're spending their time when they should be on task and or doing their homework, practicing that kind of thing on their phones. And actually, Mrs. Hughesbury and I were talking about reviewing the Regents results today, and we're trying to put all these supports in place for certain kids, and they don't want to not be attached to it. They don't want to do the extra work. They want to just sit and get, and then go to do what they want to do. And that extra time where they might be studying, reviewing, practicing, they're not, and we're seeing it.
School can't compete with technology. It's hard.
It's not as flashy, it's not as fun, it's not as engaging, exciting in some cases, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's all bad? No, right? There's a lot of really great opportunities. Like that's what I'm saying. You can't throw out the good with the bad. There's a lot of really great apps, a lot of really great things. Some of your children, Haley, you probably used it too to practice for exams. There's a lot of really great things, quizzes, interactive things. So you can't just talk about the bad side without at least considering there's a lot of really good opportunities. I was even telling somebody a story recently, like the kids would get on the phone and do their homework on FaceTime with the kids. Well, why? I don't know. They want to look at each other. So it's not all bad, but it does make you wonder about what's best for kids, right? They have access to clubs, groups, hobbies, little niche things. Like some kids are a little quirky and they can find their people online. That's not always a bad thing. Social connectivity, connecting with people, especially if it's in a positive, right? Negative impacts. This is a big one. They're so busy with this, they can't go to sleep. They're watching YouTube videos for hours at night, and they come in looking like they've been through something terrible and sickness. And when we look at absences and things, I wonder to myself, are you sick or do you just feel bad because you haven't had the proper sleep? And if you look at the amount of sleep that a kid would need to have, especially with our long bus runs, because we're a very rural district, to go to bed and have 9 or 10 hours of sleep, you're going to bed 7, 8. And I don't know that that is happening on a regular basis. So there's more and more research now, and I think if you look for research to support your opinion, you'll find it. And so, I'm not going to present a ton of research to you, but what we are finding makes me nervous. It makes me wonder what we should be doing, how we should be educating kids, and what we should be thinking about getting out to people. I found this research in a district administration guide, what principals said. About 30% of teachers allow students to use smartphones for instruction. A lot of schools struggle to police smartphone use, and I think that's one of the reasons that some of the schools are going to just ban, because they spend so much time fighting with the students over it that they just can't do it anymore. Like no instruction is actually happening.
30% of the kids are using. Teachers are using. 30% of kids.
No. So what I would anticipate, and I'm looking over at you, Mr. Olson, maybe you have an opinion on this. I would think. I know it's so rude. I know for a fact no one here at Tamarack would ever put a kid in a situation that if they didn't have the device to participate, and every kid is assigned a Chromebook. So most of the things they could do through here. So even if you did take the cell phone away, the kids can do all their academic work here, I think. Right, Ken, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think most of it's done on the Chromebooks now.
Yeah.
Another one-to-one, it's really shifted. It used to be the phones were used a lot more for the apps, and now it's just the Chromebooks because everyone's one-to-one now.
One big argument, and again, I'm not really sure where I land on, I'm sure you all land in a different spot. I think one of the arguments that parents and the community make is it's a safety issue. I need to reach my child. So then a counter argument is, well, what did you used to do? what I used to call the front office. But then there's some people that think, well, in a situation, some use your location. So there's really pros and cons that are associated with that. And I think school safety should be a consideration if there were ever to be a policy change with regards to it. I just think it has to be a part of the conversation. We can't exclude that. We can't talk about safety, 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 and not have consideration of that. Strong cell phone rules. If schools place very restrictive rules, the suspensions decrease over the fight because you can't fight over something that you don't have access to. Overall behavior improved, probably because there wasn't any fights, cyberbullying, etc. Increased student engagement. If you ever go like phone die at places, you know, all right, I gotta. Oh, it's just a different. If you always have it, it's just something for you to when you get bored, you can tap into. Kids, I don't know they know how to be bored anymore. That whole idea of just I'm bored, I'm gonna make up my own game. That's not, if you have access to technology, when you're bored, you will shift immediately to that. And that's how your brain is wired. Certainly improve social interactions among students, overall school climate, because all the nonsense and all the texting and the mean stuff and just some of the ugliness that you see on social media and texting is minimized during the day because those things exist.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is this building, people get a lot of service on the phone here? Do they give?
They must have a phone plan different than mine because
Curious.
I don't, but
They do in the lobby, and that's they're out of classes continuously to go down the
you
lobby.
do see them at the front
They-
door.
they
like,
go
So
all-
is there a way to monitor that?
No, because teachers have a hard time policing it because the fact the kids get sometimes very, very challenging in the classroom. I've seen it firsthand with the phone. I've seen it firsthand. I've gone to a student to talk to them about in the hallway privately, and they get the phone right out with me. And I say, you can't have the phone. We're having a conversation. I'll call my mom right now. We can talk. But they will go to the lobby, and they will. Sometimes the teachers just don't want to have a fight with the kid, or they don't want to have an escalation with the parent. And because they're allowed to have the phone, they get very upset. And they spend a lot of time in the lobby. That's the place that's reception. That's the only place. They've lobbied to me about getting other Wi-Fi in the building too. We've talked about that, but is that a positive? Is that a negative to add other spots for them to allow it? But it's something where they constantly in the lobby where it becomes
Is
central.
there
point.
Wi-Fi throughout the building?
Not that we have access to. Just for Chromebooks, not phones.
It's only for the Chromebook.
Yeah, our phones, even our personal devices, really don't connect to them unless.
I think it's 3 o'clock. I think it's 3 o'clock. The guest Wi-Fi turns on, so that way kids like after school. We wanted to make sure that kids could access their parents after school if you're waiting for sports and things like that. But we did try to limit it during the school day for these purposes. But IT hooks up any Chromebook issued to a TRX student or an adult to make sure that it was. So again, nothing's earth shattering here. I just wanted to kind of start the conversation and what we're planning on doing, and I'm sure Mr. Rizzo is going to join us too, is we're just going to find information and share it out. And even if one person reads it and maybe looks at parental settings, we're hoping to, that's nothing new. There's been parental settings for a long time. The kids are pretty swift, they're pretty smart, they know how to get around those things. So the best we can do is just try to educate people. And if somebody can do better and they're better to their child, it's a great thing. So what's next? Policy development, professional development, and student support. I think that's another piece too. Kids certainly don't want to hear it, but I think we have an obligation to, in terms of digital literacy, in terms of just like being smart, preparing them to go off to school. Do you have a good relationship with technology? Are you prepared when you're lonely and sad at school, or tired, or broke, or whatever? Do you have the appropriate relationship to use that device in a meaningful way? And then certainly some recommendations for parents. So I'm really excited. This is on Ronald with a lot of effort into what's the name of the book, Jill?
The Anxious Generation.
I think I shared it with the board a couple months ago. Do you want to offer anything about that while you're presenting it?
Sure. So at this point, this isn't fully crystallized yet. We're not ready for prime time. What we're really how we're gonna structure the conversation with the community. But that book, The Anxious Generation, is a pretty popular book, I think, nationwide. And I know most principals in our BOCES region have read this book and it resonated a lot with them. And not only as school administrators, but educators and parents and grandparents too. So, we don't want to have a situation where we're just kind of rephrasing what's in this book for people. But I think the way it's structured and the way it kind of lays out some of the issues and challenges that we're seeing increase since like the early 2010s, it'll be a nice way to structure that conversation. And at least for me, I really want to kind of share our learnings and our perspectives around this with the community. And I say community because I really don't just mean current parents. Like I think anyone in the community who has a child that they might send to our school one day, or as a grandparent or a student, really might want to come together to share perspectives on this, because I like a big part of it to be people kind of poking holes in things and sharing their experiences too. Because I think some of the problem areas that we can land on, it's not just going to be problem admiration. I think there's real actionable things we can do to make some positive shifts. But the thing is, we kind of have to do it together as a community. Not just the parents, not just the school, not just one parent trying to make some changes in isolation, but really kind of coming together. But we don't know what that'll look like yet. So
when the community sees things like, well, why is Spencer here? Why is Troy? Why are these people doing it? Tamarack's not. We want to respond to a problem if the problem is clearly defined, and we want the solution to any problem to make sense for our community.
You clearly define the problem. I mean, if you did research, it's clearly defined. So
But what I mean by that is the relationship in our school. So if people are having full-on fistfights because of something that's going on, that might require a different action than maybe appropriate use at the lobby, sneaking to use your phone. Do you know what I mean? So,
well, I guess I'm saying I don't know what you mean, because if this is all to be believed, I would say you ban the phones.
what I think I'm referencing, and maybe I'm not articulating well, some schools are going to put the pouches that are locked. I wouldn't recommend that for us.
I wouldn't either.
I don't think that would be prudent for us. I'd rather, if you're going to have a policy about cell phone usage, kids should be able to learn how to monitor themselves. I think that's the bigger lesson. So the Yonder pouch for me is not something I think will need to be entertained.
There's something called lockers.
If children don't like them, it's not a thing anymore. I don't know why. I think Ken tells me middle school uses them, right, Ken?
The kids don't use them much, but there are some schools that have that policy. Mechanical move to it just to put it in the locker
I was
kind of
gonna
thing.
say,
Everyone
a
has
couple
one.
of schools
Yeah,
moved to
yes,
a
you get
no
just
book bag
since
policy at
COVID.
all anymore, that you have to keep your everything in the locker because of safety reasons.
Yep. So anyway, that's just kind of the point that I was hoping to just kind of bring some attention to today. I think that's it. Otherwise, from an update from me, we're still hiring. Mr. Rizzo and I were talking about it today. The hiring goes up to the very last minute, more and more. We are currently looking for an ELA teacher. We have interviews scheduled for Wednesday. We are finalizing a business teacher. We took an alternate pathway to find someone that traditionally doesn't have a teaching certificate and who actually has some experience in the field of business with masters of accountancy and stuff, and trying to work with them to get certified as a teacher. So we're working on those pieces and parts. Mrs. Honorado was lucky this year. She didn't have to do hardly any hiring at all. So
We have an autistic assistant, so warm welcome to Agnes.
yes. And Mrs. Dewsbury, I think you're still finalizing at least one position.
Yes.
We just have to place a
yeah.
handful of aides due to some new students and some aides.
Let me just get
Perfect. Actually, why don't we start with you? You can start with your update.
Yes, we do have some littles with diabetes that we do need to support, which resulted in one of our aides that we had thought we were going to excise still remaining with us. So that's really important. I think some of that feedback from family doctors is such that we might be seeing a rise in diabetes in some of the littles from COVID. So we certainly have last year and this year. So we'll see if that continues. Our New York State alternately assessed students successfully completed their evaluation process with proficiency. So that's exciting. We have some students who may need to transition as a result of our Regent scores that you may have seen to transition to the CDOS graduation pathway. which I'm very grateful for the work-based learning growth that we've made this last year, because that program will be poised for those additional students who will potentially need to change that pathway, and that's okay, we're prepared. Some additions to that program since we met the last time are pretty transformative. Thank you to Mr. Rizzo, who donated the makerspace to work-based learning. And that's going to be run by students for both school supplies as well as some spiritware sales that we hope to maintain here in the building. During school and after school, we'll probably have some hours where the makerspace is open for the community to purchase spiritware from throughout the school year during sports events. And then we hope to have some additional job opportunities for secondary students, at least probably 3 to 5 this year, on top of the 5 to 6 job opportunities that have already been developed. And of course, those 5 on top of the 6 will be poised for New York State credit certification. Once our CTE credential is obtained by our work-based learning coordinator, we will then be able to apply for those work-based learning opportunities to be credit bearing. We're knee deep in master scheduling tweaks. We're down at counselors, so supporting with that just to make sure all of our IEP students are supported. This is also that time of year where there's a lot of coming and goings with moves and families, which affects our rosters. So there's a lot of last minute transfer needs, both in district and for our out of district students. We're spending some time in this next week to verify some of our state reporting data. So our summer meetings that we've had at the CSE level need to be finalized within the next week so that data can be verified. And we also do try to call home at this time of year when some of our high needs students' families were unable to make it to their meetings, just to make sure we review those needs as thoroughly as we possibly can. We've got some new sensory spaces in both of our buildings that, if you would like to check out, are pretty sensational. I'm hoping the kids find them exciting. At the secondary building, another space that was given to the new sensory space has some pretty cool liquid tiles in it, and we'll be filling that with some other activities. And at the elementary level, I think the sensory walk was officially completed. Super cute, and our PT worked with building to make sure that there was a nice coating over that so it would last for a good long time. Our high school and our middle school are a complete team. As you know, I talked about completing our special education continuum, where our middle school classroom will be new starting September. So they have been working very closely together all summer to create a very fluid programming a very dynamic programming for the kids. And it was what you approved earlier in the summer to have that gen ed teacher, Rivers, co-teach with both the high school special education class and the middle school special education class. And that was Nick Terracone, who came back as a partial TA and a gen ed teacher specifically just for those special education classes. So it's going to be a wonderful program where they both work very closely and fluidly together. The kids are going to be moving back and forth, having lots of fun throughout the day. So those are the major updates. Thank you. You're next.
I'll be brief. Jody mentioned the sensory path, so we're very excited about that. I believe we've had it since before my time, 2019. And Kevin McCormick and Jess Takis, our physical therapists, worked really persistently together to make sure that was done this summer. So thank you very much to both of them. Our orientations are happening. We just had pre-K last week. That went wonderfully. Very excited to have our next new round of little ones in the building, and no tears on the bus ride, except
They're
for
little.
one parent.
We have a lot of 3-year-olds this year. They'll turn 4, but they're little.
They're little,
They're
but
little.
tall. Young in age, but a tall group. And kindergarten will be next week. And also our new before and after care group has been in setting up Greenbush Child Caring and just observing the space. And they so far seem very wonderful to work with. So we're very excited to have them with us.
Good evening. As I was reflecting on the cell phone presentation, I just want to add one thing. I was thinking about the stakeholder groups, students, parents, community, teachers, and I'm pretty sure I know where students would land if there's a survey in terms of their feelings on it, on phones. Obviously, their phones, their personal devices. Parents, likewise, community. I'd be very curious where our teachers would land on our experts, who are the ones who work with the kids every day, what they see, what they're seeing in the classrooms, and they're seeing the impact, if it's an impact. So I guess I'll just leave that as just my thoughts from where we are now with phones, and I just think we need to trust our teachers and what they're seeing. Maybe it's not an impact, maybe it is an impact. I know from a bullying, cyberbullying kind of thing, we do see some of that stuff occur. I don't know that taking away would change that. Some of it's at home, some of it's at school kind of thing, but I think certainly the impact on learning is where I land personally. I was just thinking about that piece, something to put out there in terms of our teachers, very important. So for the secondary school where we are right now, August Regents exams are just wrapping up this week, and we'll share some results in a few minutes. The hiring of staff, as Dr. Maloney mentioned right now, just this summer's been challenging again. We have ELA next week at the very end of the summer here, trying to find an ELA teacher. And business is a really tough one. So unfortunately, it's the second summer in a row. We're just down on the wire here, trying to find some people that we didn't expect to leave, and some changes here, unfortunately, that we have to make here. And we're getting ready for reopening coming up here in 2 weeks. So we're excited to have the kids back and get ready for the new school year, and just try to get the right staff in place here for that. So thank you.
And I'll just finish up before we go to committee reports. I just want to thank IT and our operations and maintenance. They have been busting their tails for weeks. The place really looks terrific. Kevin McCormick, our new O&M, he has stripped and waxed and buffed more floors than I think this district has ever seen. And it's really impressive. So I know the budget went up a lot, but there really is a lot of high quality work, and I'm very confident with the way the place looks, and the work that's being done is high quality work that hopefully will stay. And I know Stephanie agrees with me. I just wanted to give them a shout. They're working their tails off. The buildings are great. And we had our new teacher orientation this week. So those of us that have been hired, Mr. Olson is one of the co-mentors with Amy Bishop, and it's great to see people that want to be here, and it's exciting. And many of them have left bigger districts to come, and they wanted to be here, which is really terrific, which is exciting.
So committee and liaison updates, anybody have, we're gonna talk about that later. Yeah. Great. So the student board representative.
So I am pleased to welcome and introduce Ms. Kayla Bedoin, who will be our student rep this year. Kayla is a volleyball player and basketball player, and really, really good, hardworking student. So she's probably not prepared because it's summertime, but we kind of talked through, and some of the board that were here just chatting, just kind of went through about, and she can report what she wants. She'll usually meet with Mr. Rizzo and myself before, kind of talk about things. But anything you want to offer about what's going on?
Yeah. So we just finished kind of going for the senior sunrise that's gonna happen on Thursday school at 5 o'clock. 5 to 6.
Mr. Rizzo, will you be there?
I was just thinking that. Literally, my thoughts are calculated time.
And then we also have the parking spot, so we can decorate the parking spot. So that's the next thing is all club.
Do you know of any senior that may have decided what college they're going to go play basketball at?
I did.
Oh, where? Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I'm sure when we have our next meeting, when school's in full session, she'll have a lot more. Does any board members have any questions for Kayla?
We don't for that.
No. Yep.
So that's going to bring us to special actions. There are quite a few of them. Let's do 6.1 through 6.12.
Minus
Minus
6.11.
6.11. Motion to put that on the table. Danielle, Tammy.
So if I could just briefly speak to at least 6.11. Our varsity softball team is proposing a trip for the kids over spring break to travel to Florida to play volleyball. We had, or sorry, actually play softball. And, you know, I think it's a really great opportunity. Finances and funding it is a big, big consideration as we make sure that we're being equally opportunity to our families. So we're going to pause on this. I'm going to gather a little bit more information and make this a little bit more of a formal presentation with some more information for the board before we go ahead and take action. I'm confident all the board members always want to make sure that the kids have opportunities, but they want to make sure that they're doing their due diligence to make sure that this trip is funded appropriately, the kids aren't doing anything in terms of fundraising that they shouldn't be doing, and that there's equal opportunity for the members of the, so it's not that the team is predetermined, that anybody that is interested to be a part of that. I do want to thank Mr. Rizzo, who spent a lot of time today with Mr. Minor and Coach Marsh, just talking through those things to make sure that we're trying to hit all those considerations. With the rest here, we have, yeah, this right here is for the stuff I do if I myself jump in here. But this is the unexpected fuel line rupture issue. So we have to take some funds out to make sure that we have capital to go ahead. That's a $90,000 project that we are planning for. So the best way to do that is have a board resolution so that we're open that up and see if we're transferring money and appropriating it into this. No. And then certainly the middle school handbooks, athletic handbook, elementary handbook, high school handbook, repairing some doors, and then this is the actual emergency pipe replacement. We have a meeting on Monday to talk about timeline. They want to start it next week, but we just have to make sure that's not going to interrupt anything having to do with bus transportation. We were hoping it would happen sooner, but it is what it is.
All in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Brings us to special ed, motion to put that on the table, 7.1, 7.2, Danielle, all in favor? Carries, so that brings us to policy.
So at our policy meeting, which we held on the 6th of this month, we went through a handful of these policies: the non-discrimination, equal opportunity, sexual harassment, or prevention, policy of rights of employees to express harassment in the workplace, and then certainly the academic eligibility is part of this. That is the only local policy. The rest are required. Really, there's not a lot of dialogue about that. Those are all required. The policy committee, certainly with some direction from the board, spent a lot of time talking about pros and cons and weighing the considerations regarding eligibility policy. So I just want to pull that up. And anything that's been highlighted has been changed from the original policy. But Mr. Rizzo, do you feel comfortable just giving a 30,000-foot overview on the major changes for people that aren't on the policy committee?
Yeah, I can't read it off for me. I said they said 9 months ago, but I still can't. It's not if I can look closer.
Even with that.
So change wise, I'm up there, sorry. So changes here, academic eligibility and support. We're talking language, it's coming from more of a, let's say, strengths-based approach rather than a negative approach, like academic eligibility versus eligibility. So I think that was the way we discussed there, language updates in the first sentence. We believe each student has the potential, parents as partners to be successful, about parents as being a part of this as well. A lot of talk about students and teachers, and sort of that's the core of it, it's student and teacher together, but also having parents brought into that equation to support at home, hopefully, as well. Determining factors, eligibility will be communicated with students and their families. Just talk about how that works. That's been in place. We always communicate it out through the middle school office. Once a list is generated, typically on a Wednesday, so we'll send out notification individually to the parents and students. They notify that this one, codify that, so to speak, that that's in place for offices. Going down to academic support, again, language, strength-based language there. Same thing, academic support weeks during probation. Before we had the eligibility and probation, and they wanted to have a more strengths-based approach now. That support continues not only during eligibility but also during probation. If you remember, the ineligibility is 5-day now. The more tiers, it's 5 days for every kid. And automatically, after 5 days, they're eligible again, no matter what. They're on probation after that for the rest of the quarter, so to speak, and they're monitored every Friday. So every Friday, they turn a sheet to say that they're still on track, and if they don't, they're failing, that they are ineligible until they turn the sheet back in, which could be the next day. Parents played critical role. Again, went to bed, we're playing with parents again, supporting. Uh, to 12 p.m. So have a PM on there. It's a minor thing. Number 7, the student will not be eligible due to a teacher's absence from school. So there's concerns about what happens with teachers. The committee had talked about this year, but it wasn't in clear language. Just what happens if a teacher is out on a Friday, the student is caught up, and let's just say they haven't been gone, but the teacher's not there that Friday. So what we're saying there is that if the student is in fact caught up and they can't get the teacher signature because they're absent, that would penalize the student. Basically, administration would have the ability to, maybe it's an 8th grade student, I can talk to Mr. Bedford and say, hey, Eric, so and so math teacher's out today. Is the student clear now? We don't want to hold that student back or penalize them. Likewise, the policy itself, we revised a lot of this to not allow breaks anymore. Last year we had an issue with school breaks. So a lot of this was just meant to give students further opportunity to not miss more than they should. In the event a teacher or educational partner is unable to meet with the student due to unforeseen circumstances, the student will not be penalized for any delays in academic progress. Again, the policy committee felt it was important just to be clear that we're not going to over penalize students, and if the teacher's unavailable, they're sick or out, we don't want to have the child miss more time than necessary. The spirit of this is to help them be successful, not to be punitive with the approach. Number 9, students and teachers are encouraged to reschedule missed sessions at your convenience to ensure student receives necessary support. We can talk about support a lot. In our system, some students will stay after school. We don't have set times necessarily. It says they work with teachers as they're available. Oftentimes they'll meet during study halls, or sometimes teachers have lunch periods. So we try to leave the language open in terms of when they meet, but just making sure that that they're encouraged to make up any sessions they've missed and work with their teacher. Right, it's just
one big conversation that Mr. Rizzo pointed out, which I think is a big one. This is not intended to be a punitive document rather than an uplifting and supportive document. I think those are 2 very different things. Even though they may approach it the same way, the language I think is important. The other thing too is this is going to be a working document. As things come up, as we revise, as we learn and grow, it comes back to either the stakeholder group that came up with it and or the policy committee to make adjustments. And we actually, instead of putting it right in code of conduct, we direct people to the website where this will be. So as it changes, that'll be changed as well. And the other promise or commitment was to, at the end of the year, get the group back together and look at that. What worked, what didn't work, and then move on from there. Because this was such an important topic to those words, does anybody have any questions? Like Ken would probably be best poised to answer them.
The question I had was over under the carryover where student, where it said number 1. Yep. We have discussion briefly, but where it says begin subsequent school year on probation, I thought they were always starting fresh start.
so I can't speak to probation as carryover in general. I can actually speak to it. I'll clarify
Okay,
that.
sorry.
No, it's a great question. So first off, in terms of the carryover piece, my first thought is carryover. I talked to Dr. Mooney earlier today about this. My feeling is that this gets adopted today. We should just do away with any carryover for this policy because this is a fresh policy. So rather than carry over kids from the previous school year to the new one and trying to put a round peg in a square hole, so to speak, just there's no carryover to start this as we kick off the new policy. Then for the new upcoming year, if a student, there's 8 opportunities for a student to get grades, interim and quarterly grades. So if a student has failed 4 or more times, so we discussed this committee, that's 50% of the year, then they're going to be a carryover. I would strongly encourage, just based on what the committee's discussions were, I would encourage everyone to look at carryover as we did as a committee. It's an opportunity for support. It's not punitive. I think it's very, very important that carryover is there. I'm going to give you just some data I was saving for you, which I wish I had shared with you, but it's not great data. 46 of 55 students failed research exams this summer. 46 of 55. I personally oversaw Apex with Brianna, and we had 27 students enroll and 5 completed it. We had parent conferences. I made 8 phone calls to one parent. I had a personal parent conference, 15 emails to the parent. The student still didn't complete the course. Review sessions we offered. I had one teacher today text me and say, I'm not sure what else I could have done. Review sessions were offered. Stephanie and I worked together closely, and I appreciate her support in getting budget money for review sessions this summer. And some of them were poorly attended. Some of these kids who should have been here, they didn't come. And the parents, some cases I meet next week, the parent said, I can't get them to come. They don't want to come. And we got to take the exam. I just don't think we're going to pass. the data that I have is it just really worries me in terms of some of the students who have opportunities to get help, get support that is there, and are not taking advantage of it. And then these exams are very, very challenging. It doesn't give you a full picture of why they're failing, but it definitely plays into some of this with just parental support or effort. What we see sometimes in terms of carryover when the students come into the school year, the new policy has carryover as something where the kid doesn't lose anything. They come in just on a list of monitors. Teachers have a list of students who last year really struggled, and then they can keep an eye on them. And then after the first week of school, that student then they have to eye their grades. If they're then failing, then they could then be on probation at that point. So it's really just a way to monitor and support them coming in. The old policy with the tiers, they did this time. They could practice, they couldn't play. Under this policy, it was simply a way to carry over and have a list of students who failed more than half the year. I just worry with 46 to 55 students not passing these exams, and a lot of them should have been at review session this summer and tutoring and didn't go to it. I worry about these students coming into the school year. We don't have supports in place.
When did the questions start for the region this year?
They were as early as end of June. We started taking things off some of these kids, and many did attend. There were, and the teachers, went out of the way here to tutor. The review sessions to me are the most disappointing because we had one in almost every subject, and some of them just, the kids just didn't come. Some kids, Amy Steele didn't come for science, and just not well attended. People travel. Again, there's things going on. Things happen in the summertime. These are students who are already behind, and they're trying to stay on track with graduation. And I have one kid right now, I'm not sure how to get the pass. He's a senior now. He's got so many credits that he can't graduate on time. So it's just becoming, I think a lot of this is coming off of COVID now, a couple of years of just changes in work habits, changes in the home environment, and just worries that we see when it comes to the student population. So it's not always as clear cut. It's just a student is, not connected to school, or some of these guys are playing sports, so they're in extracurricular activities. Keeping that focus on making sure their academics are first. It's sometimes really a priority for us to get them to the table and make sure they pass.
And the Apex, I've seen the Apex. It's hard to do on your own. You've got to be it's hard. Like you have to be very motivated or have a strong support system to get through that. Because if you get locked out,
A lot of unlocks this summer.
A lot of unlocks.
The parents were ones that did do well. A lot of times the ones the parents were really supporting.
Yeah, and if you don't,
Yeah,
you'll get discouraged and you're just gonna walk away. So it doesn't surprise me that number is high, especially with the Apex. It could be a great program if you have the right support system helping you through it.
One more piece of data with Apex I'll share with Danielle too is there's a feature where a parent can actually have a coaching account. They actually can see that they can also monitor the child as well.
Yeah.
And we offered that in the summer. We had a letter out to families that we had one parent that reached back and said, I want a coaching account of all the students. So that to me was very telling data about some of the students why they also struggle, because not to blame the parents, many are working, they can't do it. But that support at home when they're working on it also helps a lot, obviously.
Yeah, but they can also go in under the kids login and see what is going on too.
If you have it.
Yeah, because
In a perfect world,
so,
the state would fund us on these kind of initiatives so that we could have a good teacher in front of these kids and they would be sitting in front of a computer, but unfortunately they don't. So we're not wealthy enough to be able to have a pile of money to do that, so this is like the next best thing. But Mr. Rizzo's been advocating for quite a while that Apex needs a coordinator, and the reason for that is just what he just said. If there's not somebody right there pushing, motivating, before Mr. Rizzo did it, Mr. White did it, and he was calling, home, get on, what are you doing?
And Bree did it with me this summer. We split it. Actually, I'm glad it took a lot of editing for us both of us to be able. We were responding to emails and everything else from unlocking kids, as you said, constantly. Same
And
kids too, over and over again.
And if they want to do it
Right.
9 o'clock at night,
Right.
they're unlocking at 9 o'clock at night.
and then the teachers don't always get back to you that are leaving the course. It is good.
But when it works,
So
it works
when
well.
it
It's a great
works, it's
opportunity.
awesome, but there are some.
We'll keep working on it.
Did I answer your question, number one? Number one, though, Karen, for a student
No,
who
it
was academic-
makes sense. You're good.
It was sort of an arbitrary number the committee came up with in terms of, well, that's half of the interim and quarters during the year, 50% of the year. Maybe that's a given one of that mark. And remember also, they're never permanently ineligible. The old policy was 3 strikes you're out. So just because they're carryover, if they become ineligible in the fall, they still can play spring sports. There's always that opportunity to restore them to come back and still play, which is a big change too from the current policy. I think there's imperfections here, but I would say from what we have currently with the 3 tiers, some of the things there's a lot of improvements here. There's no more penalty for kids over long breaks. We have a 2-week break this year at Christmas. I certainly don't, I'm worried about that a lot coming up this year, having kids miss wrestling and some winter sports. That's not gonna affect them, with this new policy. So there's a lot of improvements here, that we saw.
How will people get this information? I know we briefly talked about it, but if the board adopts this tonight, what will be your plan for the kids, the parents?
Gonna go out to update, first update parents. I plan opening faculty day to talk with our staff about it, so make sure teachers understand it. There were 13 people on the committee. Most of them were educators, teachers here, even Sonata was a parent rep, was educator. But it's important teachers obviously understand it, and are invested in it as well, and then they go to the parents and community and share it with them. And any questions, circle the house, so the opportunities for us to have dialogue with parents as well.
The kids here in the grade level meeting?
Yes. Also, we'll have some with the students, and we'll review this with the students as well. Usually the first week, that's what we have assemblies. It's important as well. Thank you very much.
Any other questions on that? That's all for me.
Okay, so, all in favor of the policy? So, 9.1. Well, good. Discussion around this.
Most of these things I explained in my news notes, but I'll just gotta give a brief overview. Always some reservations. Here, summer scholars, which is, Laura Buffetti did some clerical work with regards to summer scholars. I will mention once again, we have exhausted our COVID funds, so if the district is interested in continuing this next year, we're gonna have to figure out how to fund that or a different type of way. I'm certainly an advocate for it. I think that summer programming is really great, along with Apex, but I do wanna continue to remind you of that. Safety care training, this is for a very specific training that certain staff were expected to do for students that might need a little bit more therapeutic support than other students. August exam gradings, this is for people that come in, they have to grade groups, things like that. MCSS training, Kim Brownell is one of our reading teachers who helps us coordinate tiered supports for kids, so she went to some training over the summer. Okay. We have a new musical director, Mary Kamiko, and Ken called me immediately. He goes, "Oh yeah, this is the one." She is, not only, but she's in charge of the Young Actors Guild, right? She really did a great job. So she's actually going to be subbing for us, one of our permanent subs too. And her daughter is the co-director. And if you look up their website, their stuff is pretty impressive. So I am really, really looking forward to it. And we do have a new structure this year. We've got a committee. But Ken always reminds us it's really important to survey kids, and the kids loud and clear said that they wanted not to go the every other year with musical and to have 7-12. So this year we'll have 7-12. And I'm actually really excited about that. It's going to be great. Kids are going to love it. Kayla's
Very excited about it.
Yeah, and it's going to be great. And with the new updates to our auditorium lights and sound, I think it's going to be like out of this world. So I'm really
Dr. Malloy just had the 6th graders also able to be involved in a backstage role and some mentorship as well.
Let's see, we got kickball on there, teacher days, teaching assistants. Our new counselor is replacing Paige Collins. She did her internship with us, so we got that. Our beat coordinator, summer tutors, summer hours, yearbook, instructional technology, transportation. Nothing on here is anything different. Any questions? End of the summer stuff.
Good. All in favor? Carries.
Yeah. I just have, maybe we'll put it on.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jenna. and Leah.
Thank
So now we need a motion for 10.1. Tammy and Danielle. Discussion.
The point is all the board members have been asked to sign the tax warrant.
So, we're not all here. So it
No,
matters.
that's okay. Does anybody have any questions about the tax warrant? It's a little wonky for our district. We have some towns that it's portioned a little bit differently, but this is the official action that allows us to levy the tax upon the homeowners. We're gonna get rid of some textbooks from the 1800s. We're gonna get rid of them. And we have a residency issue. Stephanie has been working very diligently with Lansingburg, and you might be able to get a tax settlement over a property that is shared. And a lot of times we have these shared properties they can pick school district. Well, they picked our school district, but sent their taxes to a different district. So it's
No, we sent for pre-K kids.
Oh, right,
They were
right.
exposed to Lansing was schools like that, but Lansing like that.
anyway, we're getting a little bit of money back. We're gonna ask for Copper handout tomorrow. That could be nice.
That's it? All right, all in favor? Motion carries. That brings us to public comment. No public comment. So we're gonna need a motion to go into executive session to discuss personal issue. Jenna and Tammy. All right, thank you all for coming.
Don't forget your phone, Kelly.
Right, it is.
Mr. Rizzo, were you sad not seeing our kids to the water park this year unexpectedly?
Oh, yeah, I was. I went to North Carolina without that event this year, so.
Us either, so.
Yeah.